Welcome inside to the opening drive. Nick Kosko, Mike Antosiewicz, special guest host Matt Howe. We're live from Cleveland in the Double Tree Hilton Hotel. This is actually our room. For those of you who are going to see us on camera, you will see our hotel room in the background. This is very interesting. I don't think we've ever done a show from a different location, like aside from the fair, I believe.
The fair's the only time we've gotten. I think you're right. The fair's the only time we've not broadcasted from the studio.
Well, we're going to bring in Matt as well. Matt, how you doing? You're on the road with us for the first time. You're actually appearing on our show as well. How are you doing, my friend? You ready?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I can't wait. Can't wait for the tournament tomorrow.
Well, we are going to start the tournament tomorrow, and that tournament is the NCAA Wrestling Tournament, as Mike and I are now in our third consecutive season broadcasting Rutgers. It's going to be at the Quicken Loans Arena, home of the Cleveland Cavaliers. We're going to be starting that tomorrow afternoon, as Session 1 will start at 12 noon. We'll be on the air at 11:45 for our preemption. We're going to give you all the coverage as Rutgers is going to be going up right away. Eleazar DeLuca will be the first one up in a pigtail match at 149, and of course then we'll go in weight class order with Nick Soriano and so on and so forth. So we have a couple things to do today as we preview the tournament as well, when we're going to look at all the brackets that Rutgers is featured in, and then the next segment we'll look at the rest of the brackets. We'll discuss them, and of course in our final segment today we are going to make our picks for the finals and who is going to win, and ultimately where the Rutgers wrestlers will finish. So, fellas, let's go right in order. We're going to jump right into it. We're going to start with 125 because that features a Rutgers wrestler, and his name is Nick Soriano. He is 21-0 on the season. He is seeded 4th. He finished 6th in the Big Ten tournament, but only because he medically forfeited after winning his quarterfinal match. They rested him. We were at the arena about an hour or two ago. We were watching him warm up. He looks fantastic, looks ready to go. He has a good draw. Mike, let's start with you. First, he's got Gerald Wirt from Ryder in the first round. Likely going to get Zeke Moisey in the second round before he hits the quarterfinals and we hit those top 5 seeds. But I believe, Mike, this is probably the best draw you could have hoped for Nick Soriano.
Yes. Obviously, the first 2 matches are not very difficult for Nick Soriano. If you look at them, the Ryder wrestler is not going to give him too much problems, or at least he's not expected to. Zeke Moisey obviously is going to be interesting because his freshman year, he was a national finalist. He was the year he was supposed to redshirt. Late in the season, they yanked his redshirt, and he made this fabulous run. I think he even pinned. He pinned or he defeated Thomas Gilman, I believe, in the semifinal.
It was something along those lines.
And huge surprise victory, and then he lost, obviously, to Nathan Tomasello in the final. So he's the one person that, out of this whole bracket, if you look at all the wrestlers, that shows that has shown the potential to make a real run that isn't one of the favorite wrestlers. So he could be dangerous, but the way he's been wrestling recently, he has already 9 losses on the year. He's the 13th seeded wrestler in this tournament. I know Intermat and Flo are both not very high on him. I'm not too worried about Zeke Moisey.
No, but you can't overlook this kid.
No, you can't overlook him, obviously. You then have to look at the quarterfinals and the semifinals. If everything's all chalk, Soriano's going to wrestle Sean Faust of NC State, and I think we have to say there. And then in the semifinals, he would, if everything's all chalk once more, he will face the number 1 seed, the defending national champion Darian Cruz, who surprised Thomas Gilman in the semifinal last year to make it to the national final, where he ultimately defeated Ethan Lezak, who is also on Soriano's side of the bracket.
And who knows, maybe Lezak could pull an upset of Cruz, and then all of a sudden so you have a Soriano-Lezak semifinal.
Lezak could make a run too. So there is
a stacked weight class.
It's a stacked weight class, and I don't believe. Has Soriano ever wrestled Lezak in his career? I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
I don't think that.
They might have wrestled last year when he was at Penn State, but I could be wrong on that. Matt, let's switch over to you now. Let's look at the other side of the bracket. As you know, we're kind of breaking it all down. Soriano gets the good draw. He gets the defending national champion on his side, and he gets a good guy in Sean Faust from NC State. And, of course, Ethan Lezak is in there as well. But when you look at the other side of the bracket, you have Spencer Lee of Iowa, who's the 3rd seed, and, of course, Nathan Tomasello, the Big Ten now a 4-time Big Ten champion out of Ohio State, also a national champion a couple years ago at 125, made the drop back down to 25 after spending the year last year at 133. That's another stacked side of the bracket because you also have Sebastian Rivera and Nick Piccinini from Northwestern and Oklahoma State, respectively. To me, it looks like the other side of the bracket is more of a gauntlet, and I think Suriano, because he hasn't wrestled Spencer Lee or Tomasello this year, got the best draw on the top side rather than having to go through Lee and Tomasello.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think if Suriano, like you said, he doesn't have to have Tomasello or Lee in the semis. I think that's really big because, those are two. I think Suriano, Lee, and Tomasello are the best three in the country. I mean, of course, there's Darian Cruz, who's the defending national champ, also undefeated. But I'd put him fourth if you have to break it down by those four. So I think Suriano has a great draw, and I can't wait to see I think it's inevitably going to be Nathan Tomasello and Spencer Lee in the semis. So that's going to be a great match
on the other side of the bracket.
On the other side of the bracket, yeah. So I think that's going to be a great match, and it ensures that one Big Ten guy will probably make it to the finals, and if Suriano takes down Cruz, which will likely be the matchup in the top half of the bracket, we could have an all Big Ten final. But I think keeping Suriano away from those other two Big Ten wrestlers is big.
Yeah, and Mike, it's interesting, guys, when we talk about it, it looks like we could have an all Big Ten final. And when you talk about Nick Suriano, he's dominated pretty much everybody he's wrestled this year. He's beaten Sebastian Rivera twice, but the fact that he hasn't wrestled Lee or Tomasello
or Lezak,
it kind of gives people a couple questions about him. Even though he has been dominant, he is undefeated, but if he can get by Cruz, and then all of a sudden it's like you have that easier path to the finals, and he doesn't. He's only going to have to face Lee or Tomasello. He likely will not have to face both unless somehow they all lose and they're in the wrestlebacks, and all of a sudden you have a bigger problem in their hands. But when you look at it at the big picture, it's Suriano against Lee or Tomasello in the finals. Should he make it there?
Well, what I wanted to say was that there's also somebody on the other side of the bracket that's worth looking at. If Ethan Lezak could potentially make a run, I think Piccinini could also make a run. Piccinini also defeated Darian Cruz at the All-Star Classic, I believe.
Yes.
So Piccinini has defeated the defending national champion this year. It's not in the records because the All-Star Classic does not count towards official records, but that is still something to keep in mind. But I agree. I think that it's going to be a Lee Tomasello final on the other side of the bracket.
In the semifinal on the other side of the bracket, right?
Yeah, the semifinal on the other side of the bracket. So I just wanted to bring up that point about Piccinini.
That's what I meant before, Mike, was when you look at that bottom half of the bracket, it's definitely more stacked because you have those four guys in Lee, Tomasello, and, of course, Piccinini and Rivera.
Yeah, Piccinini only has 3 losses this year. He is also coached by John Smith, who's one of the greatest coaches in the sport right now and also one of the greatest wrestlers alive. Although that Oklahoma State program is a little bit down recently, they've been able to produce, one national champion a year pretty much, I think, for the last 4 or 5 years.
Right.
But this year that certainly might not be the case. So Piccinini might be the star of this tournament for Oklahoma State, especially considering how Dean Heil is wrestling right now. So
exactly.
He's certainly a dark horse, too. I think, in fact, and you brought this wrestler up, Sebastian Rivera, I think Piccinini will be more of a danger than Sebastian Rivera.
It could be, because I would say Piccinini might have a chance to knock off. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Lee pretty much handled Piccinini at some point this year, or I could be thinking of somebody else at this point.
Yeah, I think Piccinini. Lee did handle Piccinini, but one matchup might be interesting if they make it to the semifinal. Piccinini, Tomasello. They haven't wrestled this year, and the reason why I bring that up is that there's a Big Ten style of wrestling. I actually asked Richie Lewis about this during the media availability last week. And then there's other styles of wrestling. And Iowa guys bring this up a lot because of the Iowa-Oklahoma State rivalry. But Lee likes to wrestle in the center of the mat, continuous action, continuous motion, always trying to get to a takedown. The Oklahoma State guys, they're in and out. They back in and out. It's more of a staccato style of wrestling. And maybe Piccinini could give Tomasello some trouble if they happen to meet in the semifinals. Lee obviously manhandled Piccinini, but Tomasello has not manhandled Lee. He's been dominant at certain stretches of his matches. He's looked better neutral than Lee has, but he certainly is not one of those guys that I think could just go out and just dominate everybody. I think the best neutral wrestler in this weight class probably is Spencer Lee. So, again, Piccinini is somebody that's worth looking into.
Without a doubt. Let's move ahead to 133. As now we'll eventually come back when we make our picks later in this show. But at 133, Mike, it's going to be Scott DeVecchio for the Scarlet Knights. He is unseeded, and he has Corbin Myers of Edinburgh, who's the 14th seed in the first round. DeVecchio coming in 21-7. Corbin Myers is 27-9. I personally think he can knock him off and get to the next round, where he'll take on most likely Luke Pletcher, barring some massive upset in the first round. At that point, I have DeVecchio falling to the wrestleback rounds because he has a tough part of the bracket. He did not get a good draw. He was unseeded. He didn't have a great Big Ten tournament. He lost to Jason Renteria of Nebraska twice, fell to 6th place. So DeVecchio is going to have some work to do in the wrestleback rounds. And, it seems like every year we're talking about Scott DeVecchio. He's inconsistent. Is he ever going to start fast in the first period? He's always starting slow. Is he ever going to turn it up? He turned it up a bit in the NCAA tournament last year when we went out to St. Louis, and he fell one match short of the All-American podium. For Scott DeVecchio, biggest keys, at least for me, Mike, he has to start fast. This is his last go-round, and I think he has to put it all together at this point. And if he realizes that going into the tournament starting tomorrow, I think he might have a chance to knock off Myers, and then if he falls to Luke Pletcher, he'll have a chance to make some noise in the wrestleback rounds.
Absolutely. So let me find exactly where we're at here. So
it's around the middle of the bread. It's about 36.
About 36, DeVecchio Myers, exactly. Well, I think we talked about this, was it yesterday on the plane? Or actually, I think it was in the car getting to the airport yesterday about DeVecchio. I just thought that he looked so uninspiring against Nebraska, against at the Big Tens, and not against Nebraska, against Renteria of Nebraska, who's wrestled 3 times so far this year. And I think each match, although they've been different, I think the reason why DeVecchio lost each match has been the same. Inconsistency, not catching on to things Renteria was doing, especially in the first match. Renteria got about 6 takedowns in that match, and it was the same takedown each time. Happened at
same thing in the third, and then I believe it was their second match, which was the first one at Big Tens. It was the same takedown each time for Renteria.
Same takedown each time, and then at the end, he did 2 shots to the right side. DeVecchio defends one, but then he doesn't keep his right leg back, and Renteria just makes another shot right at the end and gets it. And then in the third match, I think same thing, not adjusting to the mistakes. It was almost like I was watching a Jets game. You know what I mean? Where there's inability to adjust during the action. So I'm not very high on Scott DeVecchio right now. I don't think it's obviously because he doesn't have the talent. We talked about this all the time. He has the talent, and the good thing
But can he put it together for one last run?
Exactly. The good thing is that it's not a question about the talent. It's a question of getting a few non-wrestling related things, as in, he has the techniques, he has he's not the most physically gifted wrestler in the weight class, but he has some physical abilities. Can he just, be more consistent or something like that, which allows you to think that a run is in store, but I'm not feeling that energy from him. I am right now. I think Van Brill, I feel more confident in at this point. Same thing with DeLuca. I don't feel a lot of energy with. I think those 2 wrestlers are the wrestlers where I'm kind of, cringing a bit. Although Gravina, and this will be the last point, although Gravina did not wrestle well Big Tens too, I do think he has this natural energy about him when you talk to him in the interviews or you see him in practice, you just see him walking around the event. He's a guy that is charismatic in the way he wrestles, but also just in the way he personally carries himself, and that's why I'm treating him differently than DeVecchio and DeVecchio.
Well, we'll get there. Matt, your take on DeVecchio? He's got a tough draw. And you've even seen him this year too. When we every time we talk about him, we always talk about the same thing: inconsistency, slow starts in the first period. I mean, how do you think this kid turns it around?
Yeah, I mean, well, he's got to get after it early, like you said. This is not a gimme matchup, his first match here, and I mean, it would not surprise me if he doesn't even get out of this first bout here against Corbin Myers of Edinburgh. He could very easily lose that match. And I don't want to say I'm predicting him to lose that match, but it really would not surprise me the way he's been wrestling down the stretch. And then even if he does win that match, he will likely have Pletcher in the second round, so that's almost an automatic loss because Pletcher's an absolute beast. So, yeah, he's got a tough road to be an All-American this year. Because if he loses that first round, what's he got to wrestle?
He's got to win four in a row to get to the top 8.
Exactly, and that's no easy task, especially in this tournament.
No, I believe, and
with
Mike,
the kids in this tournament.
exactly. And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but did Scott DeVecchia lose in the first round last year? And didn't he win 3 in a row to get to that blood round matchup? Or am I mistaken?
I think he did lose first round.
He did lose first round, and then he had to win 3 in a row. All right, let's move on now. I mean, we'll head over to 149 where the LAAs are DeLuca, as we'll try to wrap up the Rutgers wrestlers here. DeLuca, the third one we're talking about out of 6. He's in the pigtail, and if you're talking about a very tough draw, I think LAAs are DeLuca has the toughest draw. He's got Steve Blease of Minnesota, who he just got pinned by back in the Big Ten tournament. DeLuca actually beat him earlier this year, way back even before the dual meet. I believe it was 5-1 he beat him, but he got pinned by him in the 7th place match of Big Tens. And now he has him again here in the pigtail round. If DeLuca wins, he's going to fall to the pigtail round in the consolations on Thursday evening, and he's going to have to win 2 in a row on Thursday evening just to get to Friday morning. So in total, if DeLuca loses that first match, fellas, to sum it all up, he's going to have to win he's going to have to win 5 in a row to get to the All-American podium.
Right.
And Mike, I'll bring it back to our tournament at MSG when we went to the Nationals 2 years ago. That's similar to Billy Smith. He ended up falling into the pigtail match in the consolations, and he won 4 in a row to get to that blood round and just fell 1 match short. So this could be a similar situation for Eleazar DeLuca, and he's going to do a lot of work because he has been very inconsistent this year as well.
Yeah, and it seems as though part of that inconsistency, and I'll just be quick because I've said a lot so far, but part of that inconsistency seems to concern his weight cutting. He's had problems with it all year because if you look at him, he's one of those taller guys. He's one of those bigger guys. And he really probably could be wrestling 57 and not struggle at that weight. He might be struggling more at 49 actually because he actually has to cut so much weight to get back down to that. So I think you saw it at Big Tens quite clearly that you had the first day of wrestling where he had a week to cut. You saw him wrestle very well, but then the second day when he only had a night to cut, there was a lot of problems. And this is going to be a 3-day tournament. Now, it's only really 2 days to get to an All-American status. The last morning doesn't determine.
It's All-Americans.
If you're wrestling the third day, everyone's an All-American. It's just a matter of what rank you're going to be, what's your final spot. But if he struggled with weight cutting, and it seems like he did at Big Tens, I don't know that for a fact, but again, what seems like happened at Big Tens, then there's reason to believe that it could happen from Thursday into Friday, and that could hurt his wrestling tomorrow, hurt his wrestling Friday, where he really needs to pick it up. I'm not too worried about tomorrow, but I am a little bit worried about Friday.
One thing I'm going to say to you, Matt, is if it seems imperative for DeLuca to actually win that first match, because I'm looking at the brackets, and when I broke it down the other day, if he loses that first one, the pigtails, he goes to the consolation pigtail. He's going to have to wrestle, as I mentioned, he's going to win 2 in a row just to get to Friday morning. And then, likely, just based on where I'm predicting, he might have a rematch with Ronald Perry of Lock Haven, where he lost to him previously. And if he wins that, he's likely going to get Jason Surtis, a former national champion now at Arizona State, or Ryan Deacon, who he's lost to this year from Northwestern. I mean, that first match that he has tomorrow morning is imperative. If he can win that one, and if he lost in the third seed Grant Leith, he drops in a different place in the WrestleBack rounds and probably avoids some more studs.
Yeah, I mean he's got the toughest road to be an All-American, I think, of any of the Rutgers wrestlers with this pigtail match, because say he loses to pigtail, then he's got to win 5 in a row just to place, just to be an All-American, and that would include 3 matches in one day. So if he loses tomorrow, he's going to have to wrestle 2 more on Thursday, pending if he wins the pigtail in the WrestleBack if he loses the first one. So he'll have potentially 2 matches tomorrow, maybe 3, if he loses the first match. If he wins his first match, like you said, it puts him in a little better spot. He loses to Leith probably from Missouri, like you said, it drops him to a different part of the bracket in the WrestleBacks where he would most likely miss out on some of the tougher competition that would fall till later in that bracket. So DeLuca, very, very tough road for him to be an All-American.
Without a doubt. John Van Brel, 157, is another interesting one for the Scarlet Knights. I mean, he actually did get seeded despite losing in the 7th place match. Finished 8th in the Big Ten tournament. He was pinned by Jake Short, who he's lost to twice this year. John Van Brel, another guy who's very inconsistent. He's 20-12 in the year. It's a decent record, but it seems like the end of the year he wrestled very well. He defeated Andrew Crone of Wisconsin. Then he beat Mike D'Angelo, both ranked guys ahead of him. Got him back into the top 20 of Intermat, and I believe Flo as well. Lost a couple matches in the Big Ten tournament, didn't finish properly. He's seeded 15th. He's got Alex Clucker of Lock Haven. That's a tough matchup on paper. If you actually look at it, I mean, it's a very even matchup despite the fact that Vanderbilt has the seed. If he gets by him, he's probably going to get LaValle from Missouri, who's the 2 seed. John Van Brill needs to, I think he needs to win this first match. If he can get by this first match, he's going to have an easier time in the wrestlebacks in order to have a chance to place. Obviously, the best case scenario for all Rutgers wrestlers, they all win every single match. But we know that's probably out of the question. So John Van Brill, I think it's imperative, and I'll go with both of you guys, it's imperative for another one like DeLuca, it's imperative that he wins that first match on Thursday morning.
Yeah, yes, because if you look at it, if he loses the first match tomorrow morning, he most likely will have to face Kennedy Monday, to whom he's already lost this season.
And we don't want to see Vanderbilt
He's
doing
from North
over.
Carolina, right? That
yes.
kid?
Yeah, North Carolina.
That kid gave him a lot of problems, too.
And we don't want the 0-for-2 thing happening to John Van Brill this year.
You don't want the 0-for-2 thing happening at all. So, once you get past that first round of the championship bracket, if you lose, then you have a much easier, at least initially, you have a much easier course through the wrestleback bracket. But still, LaValle is going to be a tank. I think Van Brill is capable of doing anything, but I think LaValle's going to be a very tough wrestler to pull an upset against. Not only because he's good, but I think also because of body type. LaValle is he's a smaller guy, shorter guy, very compact guy.
That could go against Van Brill despite his length.
Yeah, I think it will go against Van Brill against his length. Van Brill wrestled well against Jason Nolf, at least initially before Nolf had to forfeit because of his injury, because both of them are scramblers, and Van Brill's a very good scrambler. Now, that situation does favor Nolf to a certain extent because Nolf is the king of all scramblers in that weight class, but still, it allowed Van Brill in it. LaValle, he's so compact, he's so explosive when he shoots. I was watching, actually, LaValle's semifinal from last year, I think 2 days ago, and he's so explosive when he shoots. So the fact that he's smaller, he's more explosive, I don't think he's going to give Van Brill many opportunities to start a scramble situation. And that's when Van Brill succeeds on his defense, right? He's longer, sometimes doesn't react fast enough, but then he starts his scramble situations and it exhausts his opponent. It gives him chances to score. I don't think that's going to happen against LaValle, so let him get to that match. I think it's very important he beats Clucker, Lehigh kid, so he's going to be no joke, a very tough kid to wrestle.
Lock Haven,
excuse me. So you didn't actually get to wrestle this kid, but Lock Haven wrestlers are still tough to wrestle. So get past him, but then I think LaValle is going to be the gauntlet.
Yeah, without a doubt. 165, Richie Lewis. Now, this is probably going to be the favorite bracket from everybody. Besides 125, if not 165, is probably the top bracket to look at this year. You have so many wrestlers from top to bottom who potentially could win a national championship.
I said this to you yesterday. It's the only bracket where winning a national championship is easier than winning a national championship would be easier than to fall into the wrestlebacks and wrestle back to third, because there's less matches you would have to wrestle.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely ridiculous when you look at it that way. Richie Lewis is the 6th seed for the Scarlet Knights. He's on the bottom half of the bracket. He's going to get Quentin Perez of Campbell University first. If he wins, likely going to get Isaiah White in a rematch when he beat him when Rutgers faced Nebraska on the road. And if Lewis gets by that, which I think is going to happen, he's getting the defending national champion, Vincenzo Joseph, the 3rd seed from Penn State in the quarterfinals. It's a gauntlet just to get to the finals. But if Lewis falls, as you mentioned, Mike, he might have to take on guys like Evan Wick, Chad Walsh, Chance Marstetler. There's just so many guys. Massa, Marinelli. You never know. You never know where they're going to fall in the brackets. He could be running into all these guys once again. For Richie Lewis, I think, as you mentioned before, Mike, and I'll go to you too, Matt, right here. The best course of action for Richie Lewis is just keep winning your matches so you stay in the top, so you stay in the championship part of the bracket, and you get to at least the semifinals, so you're on the podium, and then from there you go out and see what you can do in the semis and possibly even finals.
Yeah, this is, like you said, it is a gauntlet. I think any of the top 5 seeds in this bracket are capable of winning it all, and depending on Richie Lewis loses, if he does in fact lose in the winners bracket, just the wrestlebacks are going to be just as difficult because you're going to have guys falling like Chad Walsh could fall, Chance Marsteller. You look at guys like Marsteller and Walsh too. Walsh is the 4 seed, right? Marsteller is the 9th seed. Marsteller beat Chad Walsh earlier in the year, and then Chad Walsh beat Marsteller in the conference championship finals by a score of 2-1. So, those are two guys that are very even, but spread out by 5 seeds. Walsh being the 4 seed, Marsteller being the 9 seed. So Richie Lewis, if he doesn't get past Vincenzo Joseph in that quarterfinal, he's going to have the gauntlet in the wrestlebacks because he's going to have, a guy like Marinelli come down again who will have the rubber match with, obviously, them splitting matches this year. He could have a guy like Chad Walsh. He could have a guy like Chance Marsteller. So, his best case scenario is to just beat Vincenzo Joseph in that quarterfinal match. That would be huge win for him, obviously. Get him to the semifinal, and that guarantees him an All-American spot.
Without a doubt, and our good friend James Cratch of Injury.com actually predicted Richie Lewis to finish 3rd in this weight class, but in doing so, he defeated Vincenzo Joseph in the quarterfinals to get to the semis and clinch a spot. Let's go to the final weight class for Rutgers, and that's 184. It's Nick Gravina. He came in seated 14th. He had a bad Big Ten tournament, was 0-2, and then they put him in the 9th place bracket, and he finished that. He finished in 9th place. Nick Gravina is a guy who turned it up last year in St. Louis, was a match away from being an All-American. He had, once again, last year he had a bad Big Ten tournament, then he just flipped the switch once he got to the big stage. He's got another tough draw. He's got C.J. Lafrago from Brown University. He's a South Jersey guy. He's a solid wrestler. He made a little bit of noise in St. Louis last year. Gravina, if he wins, he's going to get Ryan Price of Lehigh, who we know, who Mike and I know, because Jordan Pagano upset him last year before they wrestled again, and Price went and obviously wrestled up to his own speed. So Gravina,
and when Price was at 174 pounds.
Yes, and of course they both bumped up. Just Price bumped up. He's the 3 seed in this bracket. Gravina's going to have a tough road here, Mike, but I think he might be able to do enough if he can at least win that first one. He might drop the second one to Price, but then he goes into the wrestlebacks. He's beaten a lot of these guys that he's in front of, like Taylor Vance, Ricky Robertson from the Big Ten. You look at those guys, I think he can beat them again. I think Gravina he's going to have another one of those tournaments where he can make a run through the wrestleback rounds should he fall out of the championship bracket early.
Well, I think the fact of the matter is that, unfortunately, he most likely will fall out of the championship bracket early. Ryan Price is really good this year, only has 2 losses.
Considering he put on 10 pounds and he just looks even stronger than last year.
Yeah, so unfortunately, he will probably, by Friday morning, Gravina would most likely be in the wrestlebacks. I think if he would actually have to wrestle in the wrestlebacks Thursday night if he loses to Price.
No, he'd be that would be Friday morning.
It'll be Friday morning. It'll be his first match. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's something interesting there. Now you talked about the Venz match. I actually was able to watch that live. He dominated Venz. It was a very convincing victory for Nick Gravina, but I think Venz was off that match, and obviously Venz is extremely talented. So. That's
Venz is the 7th seed still. They have a lot of respect for him. The committee.
Exactly. So I think you have to cross your fingers for that match. Ricky Robertson is also a very, very good wrestler, and I think Wisconsin. All those wrestlers are a bit of an X factor right now because this is Barry Davis's last major tournament as head coach of Wisconsin. So that might give them a little bit more energy, a little bit more motivation to represent their coach to the best of their ability, and. It might just be Robertson or maybe it's Andrew Crone, but one of these Wisconsin wrestlers becomes a freight train and makes a run. So I think Gravina has a very, very tough bracket. Very, very tough bracket.
And Matt, I'll go to you before we wrap up this segment. Your opinion on Gravina, where he's seated. I mean, did the committee get it right seating him that low? Because he had the bad Big Ten tournament? Or, I mean, does he have a case to move up more? Because he was a top 10 wrestler about last week.
Yeah, I mean, I think the committee maybe undervalued him a little bit, but, coming off that terrible Big Ten tournament, it's I'd say he's probably seated about right. I mean, but he's got a tough first-round matchup with Lafragola, the South Jersey kid from Brown. So if he gets out of that one, Price, obviously tough matchup. He has another difficult road to be an All-American in a very, very tough weight class. I mean, all the weight classes are tough, but, I think, out of the 5 Rutgers wrestlers competing, him, DeLuca, and Mambro all have very tough bouts to be an All-American. Meanwhile, Suriano and Lewis are in a much better spot.
Without a doubt, and DeVecchio, too.
DeVecchio as well. I'm sorry, he has another tough road.
That he does. All right, we're going to step aside. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we'll break down the rest of the brackets quickly with the other wrestlers that are the high-profile wrestlers that are featured in this tournament. We'll even look at 141, which is a very interesting weight class.
Oh, that's the most interesting.
And then we will also in our final segment of the show, make our picks. We'll make our finals predictions for all the weight classes and our winners, and we'll also predict where the Rutgers wrestlers will fall in the brackets, whether they'll be an All-American or not. So make sure to stay tuned for all that. We're going to keep it locked here to 88.7 WRSU FM and online at WRSU.org. Welcome back inside to the opening drive. Nick Kosko, Mike Antosiewicz, special guest host Matt Howe with us too. We're live from our hotel room at the Double Tree Hilton in Cleveland, Ohio, site of the 2018 NCAA Wrestling Championships. Fellas, we talked about the Rutgers wrestlers brackets in this tournament. Let's look at the other ones quickly before we make our picks later in this show. We'll go to 141, where there's no Rutgers representative this year, which is kind of weird considering this was Anthony Ashnall's weight class before he was knocked out for the whole season after his summer injuries and surgery. So he didn't wrestle this year. We don't know where he's going to end up next year. We're still waiting on the NCAA's ruling on his 6th year of eligibility. Mike Van Brill fell a little bit short of the tournament this year, and I know he's probably about one match away from getting in there. But regardless, we'll break down this weight class a little bit too. This is an interesting one because it's still stacked, despite the fact that Dean Heil of Oklahoma State, the two-time defending champion, has fallen to the 6th seed because of a lot of losses this year, or we didn't expect them coming.
And starting early.
It was early too, and the further emergence of Jay Nyerman of Missouri, now the 2 seed, he looks very good. Bryce Meredith seems to own this weight class now from Wyoming. He was a finalist 2 years ago, almost got back there again last year. He's the 1 seed right now. You look at the freshmen. You look at Nick Lee from Penn State and Yanni DeKamahalis from Cornell. These guys are fantastic, especially Yanni. There's other guys in there. Dean Heil is the 6th seed. Kevin Jack is still there, the 5th seed from NC State. And, of course, can't forget about Joey McKenna, now at Ohio State from Stanford. He's the 4th seed. Fellas, this weight class is so stacked. I feel like we're going to have a lot of chalk, and the quarterfinals are going to be fantastic. I have right now Meredith Lee, Jack McKenna, Yanni Heil, Zakurl Ironman. That's all top 8 seeds. I think we might have chalk to the quarterfinals, and then from there it could be total mayhem. This is going to be a very, very fun weight class to watch this whole weekend.
I think that this is the most interesting weight class, not only the most fun to watch, but also the most interesting to watch.
Because you don't know what's going to happen in this one.
You really don't. You don't know what's going to happen. I was talking to actually some of the Rutgers coaches about this, and I think they said that it's going to be between. One of them said that it's going to be between Meredith and Dick Miholis, Meredith and Heil. So
they think Heil's going to make a run and get back to the finals.
Perhaps. Oh no, sorry, Meredith or McKenna. Another M word. I'm sorry. Between Meredith and McKenna.
They're on the same side of the bracket, too.
They're on the same side of the bracket, so basically I think someone on the top side of the bracket is going to get through. McKenna's the 4th seed, but he's wrestling so hot right now. Man, he just looks so good against all his Big Ten opponents. And then in the final,
he dominated Mike Carr of Illinois.
And Carr is a good wrestler. He was an elite Pennsylvania wrestler out of high school, which that tells you right there all you need to know about how good this kid is. So I kind of feel like McKenna, and of course in the next part of our show we'll do selections, but I feel like McKenna
is going to make a run here.
Yeah, I think the McKenna...
Well, Mike, if you remember, I told you that as soon as the Big Ten tournament was over, I said he's probably the hottest wrestler going into this weight class at NCAA, despite his seed. Joey McKenna has turned it on a notch. We saw 2 years ago he finished 30. Of course, he defeated Anthony Ashnall in the 3rd place match. Last year he got knocked out early. And then he made the transfer from Stanford to Ohio State, and it has to be just being in that room. He's a new wrestler, and he even started slow this year, but the last about month plus, he's arguably been the best wrestler in this weight class.
I would say so. I think the enthusiasm around Yanni has
fizzled since the beginning of the year.
Yeah, but it was so high, and you have these websites like Flow. Just they like his name, so they're going to put him on every headline as much as possible.
It is a long name.
He has one loss, Yanni. Do you know who that loss was to? I don't know.
I'm actually at a loss for words here. I'm pretty sure he beat Dean Heil, or did he lose to him, Dean Heil, early in the year?
I don't know. I don't think he wrestled Heil. We're going to have to look that up for our next break. But Yanni Heil is going to be an interesting matchup at one of the quarterfinals. I think I pick Yanni. I think the real shame is that the semifinal for this weight class between Meredith, if it's all chalk and it's between Meredith and McKenna, is probably going to be more interesting than the final.
It could be.
It could be more interesting than the final. That tells you a lot. So if Meredith was on the other side of the bracket, I think that would be more interesting because
he might run into Dean Heil over there.
No, I think Meredith Yanni would be really interesting because Yanni's known for being a scrambler.
That could very well be your final, though, Mike.
And Meredith is known for being a scrambler. So seeing those two scramble efficient wrestlers, I think would be really interesting. But unfortunately, that's not how the way it's going to work out. I'm feeling McKenna on the top side of the bracket. Of course, we're going to our picks later, and I just think Ironman. Yanni's good. I'm just not feeling it from him. I think Yanni has, since last year at Nationals, where he kind of was a surprise All-American, he's just been ascending. So I'm going to pick Yanni. I'm going to say Yanni does defeat Heil, but for some reason I think Ironman's going to be the head of that bottom bracket.
Matt, what do you think about this bracket? I mean, you look at as Mike said, if it's chalk through the quarterfinals, and as I said before, and then if you have chalk to the semifinals, I mean, all these guys are, I would say, at least 1 through 6, where you go down from Meredith to Heil, they're all capable of winning the national title. Then you look at 7 seeds like Zakurl and Nick Lee, maybe not, but at least I would say the top 6 all have a chance to win a national title in this bracket.
For sure. And I'll give you my semis matchups. In the top bracket, I have Meredith over McKenna. So that's chalk, 1 to 4. And then at the bottom, I have Dean Heil over Ironman. So I think Heil gets off the hide a little bit, and the 2-time national champ shows his experience in this tournament.
It's going to be very interesting. Speaking of which, Mike,
beats Yanni.
Ironman is the one who beat Yanni earlier this year, and there was a 9-6 score. So look at that. And it's very interesting. All right, let's move on to 174, where there is no Joe Grella this year. He had a tough Big Ten tournament. He had a very unlucky draw. He ended up going 0-2 at Michigan State. But you look at 174, I think at this point, you look at Zahid Valencia, look at Mark Hall, and that's it. And then you have guys like Bo Jordan and Jordan Cutler. Miles Amin is in there as well.
Daniel
Lewis from Missouri. But I think at this point, it's going, I mean, obviously we'll do picks in a little bit, but this weight class I think is dominated by Valencia and Hall. They met in the All-Star Classic, won by Valencia. He won the rematch over Hall after their semifinal matchup last year, but I think this is a weight class dominated by those two guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely dominant. It's going to be those two guys in the finals, I can tell you that now. And these wrestlers are just fantastic. You know, you got both undefeated. Valencia is 27-0, Mark Hall 28-0. It's this bracket is not as strong as other brackets. I mean, I know every weight class in this tournament is obviously stacked with the best wrestlers in the country. But as far as this bracket goes, I see it going chalk 1-2 all the way to the championship. I don't know about you, Antosh.
Oh, I completely agree.
And Mike, if we're speaking of chalk, we'll get heavyweight out of the way real quick too. That weight class
Snyder,
is
baby.
That weight class is Snyder and Kuhn all the way. So Mike, I'll get your final thoughts on 74, then we'll look at 97.
Although if Nick Neville's were to make some surprise, if anyone is to make a surprise in heavyweight, I think it would be Nick Neville's. I think he's really good.
Let me get your thoughts on 74 real quick, then we'll jump right over to 97 and break that down before we make our picks in a little bit.
You said about 74?
Yeah, 74. Your thoughts besides Valencia and Hall. I mean, I feel like you look at Bo.
You got Bo.
I mean,
yeah, Bo
you
Jordan
have
there.
Joe Bordy. You have Bo Jordan. Jordan Cutler's a stud, and you also look at Daniel Lewis. I mean, these guys are very capable of pulling off upsets. But it's like if they get to the semifinals, you're either facing Mark Hall or you're probably facing Zahid Valencia. So you're looking at a brick wall to get to that final stage on Sunday night or Saturday night.
Yeah. I think it's going to be Hall or Valencia. The only person that might disrupt that is Bo Jordan. Bo Jordan
He has experience doing it.
Yeah, Bo Jordan has to face the Cornell kid Womack first round. He's going to defeat him. Then he's going to have to face Koser. He's going to defeat him. Then in the semifinal, it's going to be Jordan and Lewis. No, in the quarterfinal, it'll be Jordan and Lewis.
Yeah. So that's a tough one. He has to get by Daniel Lewis just to get to Mark Hall.
Yeah, that is very true. So he might be out in the quarterfinals. But then again, if he does beat Lewis, semifinal against Mark Hall, I think Jordan. You see, last year, if you look at the matches last year between them, I think Hall just did not wrestle well in that Big Ten tournament, and then in the Big Ten final, and then at Nationals you just saw Hall's like, I made my mistake.
You saw a different Mark Hall.
You saw a different Mark Hall, and that's why I think it's the same thing I think at 84, where initially you're like, oh wow, Martin Nickel, that's going to be a rivalry. But
of course,
but Nickel just pulled ahead, and I think that's the same situation at
74 between Jordan and Hall.
Yeah, where initially you thought, especially after the Big Ten tournament,
like, wow, Bo Jordan is going to give this guy a lot of problems.
Yeah,
now it's the opposite.
Now it's the opposite. So
actually, let's put 97 on hold. We're going to take a quick break right now.
You want to do 97?
Oh, we're going to do 97. When we make our picks, we are going to break that bracket down a little bit further because 97 to me, folks, is completely wide open, and I'm sure there's a lot of opinions to go around. So right now, we'll take a quick break. On the other side, we'll break down our finals matchups. We'll also discuss where the Rutgers wrestlers will fall, make all of our picks when we return, so make sure to keep it locked. You're listening to The Opening Drive here on 88.7 WRSU FM and online at WRSU.org. Welcome back inside The Opening Drive. Nick Kosko, Mike Antosiewicz, Matt Howe, our special guest host, live from our hotel room in Cleveland, Ohio. Getting ready for the NCAA Wrestling Championships beginning tomorrow at 12 noon. Catch all the action here on this very station. All three of us will be out there. Mike and I will be upstairs. Matt will throw on the sideline. First time it's Matt. So we have a Matt side guy for this tournament. So we're going to have an interesting look at what Matt can do tomorrow.
Are you going to say we're going down to Matt on the mat now?
We'll do something like that. How about that's a
little segment?
Little segment we could do that. So we're going to give you all the coverage the next 3 days, and hopefully we'll be with you hopefully Mike and I and Matt will be with you on Saturday night for the first time ever doing this. As Rutgers, that would mean Rutgers has a finalist. So we'll see what happens. But speaking of finals, fellas, we'll go from the small to the big. 125. Give me your finals matchup, and your champion. I'll start out. I can't go against our own guy, Nick Suriano. He's just too good. I think he is going to break through. He's a different animal in the postseason. He wants it after last year not being able to wrestle in the postseason due to the injury at Penn State. He's here now. He loves it at Rutgers. I think he's mentally all there this year. I say he gets by Cruz in the semis. He's going to take on Nathan Tomasell in the finals. So you got Suriano and Tomasell, and I think Suriano will come out on top and become Rutgers' first national champion.
I do agree, although I'm not as confident as you are. And it's nothing against Suriano. It's just
the weight class is so good.
The weight class is so good. Tomasello, I think there's almost some destiny there, right? Won national championship as a freshman, went up to 33, national semifinalist twice, and now going back down. So if anyone doesn't win it, I think it's going to be. If Suriano doesn't win it, I think it's going to be Tomasello.
So you have Suriano right now over Tomasell in the finals.
As of now, yes.
Okay, Matt, I'll go to you.
I have Suriano over Spencer Lee from Iowa. I think Spencer Lee takes out.
Wins that rubber match.
Yes, I think he wins the rubber match in the semifinals, and then I think it's a great finals match between Spencer Lee and Nick Suriano, with Nick Suriano coming out on top.
Could be one of the marquee ones. All right, let's go to 133. A little bit easier for me, and I would say, Mike, it's probably easier for you, too, as we discuss this one all the time. I got Seth Gross of South Dakota State taking it over Stefan Micic of Michigan. These are obviously the two best wrestlers in the weight class. I mean, Pletcher could beat Micic, but Micic has seemed to turn the corner now at this weight class. And we knew he was good last year. He's great this year, but I'm still going to pick Gross over Micic in the finals at 133.
Yeah, it seems like this Micic might be pulling away from Pletcher now when we initially thought that these two were going to be a pain for each other.
But that could be a great semifinal, though.
Yeah, it's going to be a great semifinal. I think it's going to be Gross, but let me tell you one thing. I think Micic will win a national championship next year.
Before it's all over.
Unless like Suriano bumps up or Lee bumps up, Micic is going to win the national final.
So you have Gross over Micic in the finals.
Yes.
And Matt, will go to you. Do you make it 3 for 3?
I like Gross over Pletcher.
Interesting.
I think Pletcher catches back up to Micic a little bit, and yeah, I think Pletcher takes down Micic.
So Matt will go against the grain for us. All right, so let's move on to 141. We have Bryce Meredith against Jaden Ironman. Actually, before we do that, let's go back to 133 real quick, because we do have a Rutgers wrestler in that weight class. It's Scott Del Vecchio. Fellas, I broke down this bracket the other day. I think he's going to win his first one, lose his second to Pletcher, and then he'll win one in the wrestlebacks. I think he's going to fall short on Friday morning, but I hope he proves me wrong. But I think Del Vecchio is going to fall 2 wins shy of the All-American podium.
I would agree.
I would love to pick him, as he was so close last year, and I thought that coming into the year, but I think he's going to fall 2 wins short of All-American status. Mike, what do you think about Del Vecchio?
I agree.
You agree? All right, so we're going to be chalk on. We're going to be 3 for 3 on that.
And the national media also agrees. No one I've seen so far even gets him to the blood round.
That's interesting. So let's go over to 141 now. No Rutgers wrestler, but a very interesting weight class, as we mentioned before. that last break. I'm going to go with Bryce Meredith coming out of the top. I'm going to go 1 versus 2. Once again, it's going to be Meredith against Missouri's Jaden Ironman. I'm going to pick Meredith to finally break through and win this weight class. He's been so close twice now. I think this is finally his year. I think Dean Howlett can make some noise again because he is a 2-time champion, but I think he gets knocked down in the quarters by Yanni. But I think Ironman's too good this year, and Meredith is on another level. But it'll be a tough semifinal against McKenna. But I'm going to go with Meredith over Ironman at 141.
I think I'm picking Meredith. I'm not sure if it's because of heart or because of
it's his time.
It's his time, or because I do like Meredith, but I'm just feeling it with him right now. I don't feel it's going to be Heil. I don't feel anyone in the bottom bracket it's their time yet. I just think it's Meredith's time, and McKenna's here next year. Meredith is not. All engines revving. Meredith.
Over who, Mike, in the other side of the bracket?
I'm going to say Ironman.
Ironman. Matt, we'll go with you now.
I like Meredith as well, but I like him over Dean Heil, which I said earlier. I think
that's
Dean
right.
Heil gets it done all the way to the final.
So
I think that's crazy.
And then he would have to get by Yanni DeKamahalis and then like a Jaden Ironman just to get there. But Dean Heil has proved it again and again. It would not be shocked if he does that at all. 149. Fellas, I think we can make this quick. First, we'll go with DeLuca's finish. Honestly, I think he has a tough match with Steve Blyce in the pigtails tomorrow morning. I think if he loses that, he can get through the wrestlebacks. I think he's going to win 3 matches if that happens. But I think, like him, because of where he would be placed if he lost that very first match tomorrow morning, he likely gets Jason Surtis or Ryan Deacon in that one wrestleback round on Friday morning. I think DeLuca ultimately is going to fall 2 matches short of All-American status, but when he looks good, fellas, he looks really good. But he has been inconsistent. I just don't trust him enough. Again, as with all the Rutgers guys, hope they prove me wrong. But I think DeLuca is going to fall a bit short. What do you guys think?
I'll just be quick. I agree, and obviously Zane Rutherford's going to win the weight class.
I would say over Sorensen, Mike.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go with Zane over Sorensen as well. Penn State over Iowa in that one. Matt, let me give me your finals and where DeLuca's going to finish.
Zane over Sorensen. No one beats Zane ever.
And the only one who beats Sorensen is Zane.
Yeah, exactly. So DeLuca, very tough to
Got to win that first one.
Yeah, got to win the first one to give himself even the slightest bit of chance. So yeah, he's got it tough. I don't see him making it past Friday morning.
Tough way to end for DeLuca. The transfer from Colorado State. Or Northern Colorado. I always forget it's one of those Colorado. It's always one of those Colorado schools. All right, 157 fellas. We have John Van Brill in there. I think just by the way I predicted him out, I think he wins his first one, but he'll lose to LaValle. And from there, I think he wins at least one, gets the Friday evening, and then he's in that blood round Friday evening. I have him facing Josh Shields of Arizona State, but I think he's going to fall to Pantaleo in the quarterfinals. If it's a Van Brill-Shields matchup or a Van Brill-Pantaleo matchup, very tough to get by. I think Van Brill ultimately is going to fall 1 match short. But he has surprised us before, including being down 7-0, Mike, and getting a pin in a huge dual meet. I know it's dual meet in tournament season.
He was a different wrestler then. He was a more explosive wrestler then. He was a more big move wrestler. He isn't like that anymore. But let me say this: at Midlands, he did make a run where I think he defeated 4 ranked wrestlers in a row. Wrestlers that were ranked above him. Actually, he wasn't even ranked at that point. So
he's capable of doing this.
He has made runs. He wrestles well in clusters, and if he wrestles well in this cluster, then he should be in a good situation. But
I think he's going to fall one.
I think he's going to fall 1 match short too.
So blood round for him.
And I think actually now the more interesting question is national championship because Hidlay is there. Nolf is. We don't know if he's healthy. Kemmer's obviously around the corner.
So before we get there, Matt, let me get your finish for John Van Brill.
I agree with you guys. I think he falls 1 round short of the blood rounds.
So as far as my national title pick, fellas, I'm going to go with Hayden Hidlay from NC State over Jason Nolf. I think Nolf is healthy enough to get there, but I think Hidlay's on another level as a freshman. Hidlay over Nolf, NC State over Penn State in that final.
I am picking Nolf. I think Nolf teched the kid, and then I think he pinned the kid, or something like that, or he majored and teched the kid at Big Tens. I think he's healthy. I'm picking Nolf to win it all.
Over Hidlay?
Yes.
No. I also agree with Antosh. I like Nolf over Hidlay. Nolf's the best wrestler in this weight class, I think.
Oh, when he's fully healthy, by far.
Yeah,
I
think he's healthy.
I think he's healthy enough.
I don't think even if he's not 100%, he's still the best wrestler.
It's very well could be that way. But I'm going to take Hidlay over Nolf. Let's go to 65. Very interesting. As far as Richie Lewis, I think he ultimately finishes 3rd. I say he loses to Chenzo in the quarters, but then rolls his way through. Chance Marceller, Evan Wick, Chad Walsh, and I think he could beat David McFadden. I mean, look at that. That's 4 in a row he would have to win over these ridiculous guys. But I think Richie Lewis ultimately finishes third, the highest place winner to this point for Rutgers if Suriano does not win a national championship. I'm going to go with Lewis at third place, and then my national final, it's a rematch of last year. Isaiah Martinez of Illinois, Vincenzo Joseph of Penn State, but this time Isaiah Martinez gets his payback, wins his 3rd title in his 4 years at Illinois. Mike, let's go to you. Your Lewis finish and your championship pick.
I think Lewis is going to upset somebody. I think there's going to be a big victory for him somewhere. I'm not sure if it's going to be against Chenzo.
Or somewhere in the wrestle
Yeah,
bags.
and I'm not sure he might finish as high as 3rd. I think he probably finishes 4th. Just that one extra match. I don't know. Everyone's seen each other so much recently. But 5.
But definitely on the podium for you.
Oh, definitely on the podium. 4-5. That's my guess right now. Although it would not surprise me if he makes a run to the national final. But I think even if he makes a run to the national final, unless there's something really, really spectacular that happens,
He would fall to Imar likely.
I think it's all Imar this year. I think it's completely Isaiah Martinez.
You have Martinez over Joseph in the finals.
As of now, because I think Lewis will beat Joseph, I think it's going to be McFadden. Imar over McFadden in the finals.
Oh, you think Lewis is going to beat Joseph as well?
Yeah, I think he's going to lose to McFadden.
So you have Martinez over McFadden. I have Martinez over Joseph. Matt, let's go to you before we get to 74.
I have Martinez over Vincenzo Joseph, and I think Richie Lewis will take 5th. I think he will take 5th, which will be a good finish for him.
And that's a gauntlet down there.
It is a gauntlet down there. You look at guys, he's going to have to wrestle in the wrestlebacks. For him to wrestle in the 5th place match, he's going to have to wrestle. For him to get to the 3rd place match, he's going to have to wrestle either most likely Vincenzo Joseph or David McFadden, and I think one of those two guys takes care of him in the consolation match to get to 3rd place. So I think Richie Lewis will go to 5th.
Just based on how I broke it down, just based on all my picks in the entire bracket. I have
he could wrestle Vincenzo Joseph twice,
of course, and I have him against Marstettler, Wick, and then Walsh, and then McFadden to take 3rd. So it's going to be very tough. 174. I think we settled it before. There's no Rutgers wrestler here, and I think when we discussed it before, I got Valencia over Hall this time. I think the 3rd time they meet up, I think one of them was at the All-Star Classic, so it didn't count towards the record, but Valencia took that one. I have Zahid Valencia of Arizona State over Mark Hall of Penn State, and it denies Penn State another national championship. You alive over there, Mike?
I am. No, this is, I'm a thinker.
You are a thinker.
He's an intellectual.
It's going to be those two guys, but who do you pick?
That's what I'm thinking about. I want to say Mark Hall. I want to say Mark Hall.
I want to say MarkAll or Valencia again.
Again, it might just be Big Ten favoritism on my part.
It could be.
But
I'm trying to avoid that.
Baby Miki. That's his Instagram.
I want to say Mark Hall.
You're going to say Mark Hall. Matt, how about you?
I like Mark Hall as well over Valencia.
So that's going to be
Baby Miki Markey.
That is going to be a very, very good final. At 184, Nick Gravina is in there for the Scarlet Knights. I think he's going to win his first, lose his second, but then I think he can get by guys like Ricky Robertson and even Max Dean, the younger brother of Gabe Dean. I think ultimately Gravina is going to finish 8th. I have him losing to Abonator in the consolation quarterfinals, and then I have him dropping to the 7th place match where he would take on Emery Parker, and for some reason he just cannot get by him, even though every time it's close. I think ultimately Gravina does make the podium. I say he finishes 8th, and then my national final. It's really hard to pick against these two guys. Bo Nickel, Penn State, Miles Martin, Ohio State. Nickel will come out on top. I don't see Martin knocking him off this time. It seems like Nickel has finally been able to pull away from him, even though this is a good rivalry. I have Gravina finishing 8th for Rutgers. Bo Nickel over Miles Martin in the finals. Mike?
I think Gravina, if he does All-American, he will be 8th. I'm 50-50 on that right now, and it's just Bo Nickel.
Bo Nickel over Miles Martin.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yes. Nickel over Martin. Mike, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think the way it works at 84 is that Nickel's a step above everybody else.
Martin's a step above everybody else behind.
And then Martin's a step above everybody else. And then there's everybody else.
There's 3 tiers. There's Nickel, there's Martin, and the third is everybody else.
Yes, exactly.
So, exactly. So go ahead, Matt.
So I have Bo Nickel over Miles Martin, and then I have Gravina. I think he falls 1 round short of making it to the 7th place match.
Just like where he was.
Just shy, yeah.
So he's going to be
lose.
So he'll fall in the blood round.
rounds.
Okay,
yeah.
So just like last year. All right, 97, fellas. Interesting weight class to break it down. It's wide open. Ultimately, I'm going with the 1-2, even though Colin Moore from Ohio State, who I thought was my easy pick, preseason to win the national title. He's lost twice this year. Once to Machiavello of NC State, and now I forget who else he lost to. He lost to
Kassar.
That's right. He lost to Kassar, who's not even in this tournament. It's Shakur Rashid for Penn State. So there you go. Colin Moore, though, I think he's going to make the final. I think he's taking on Darmstadt of Cornell. He could very well lose to Jared Hall of Virginia Tech. There's Machiavello, the 4th seed from NC State. All these guys are so good. Ultimately, I'm going to pick chalk. I'm going to go 1 versus 2. Colin Moore over Ben Darmstadt. Ohio State over Cornell. I think ultimately this helps Ohio State win the national title team-wise this year. Mike, what do you got?
This is a tough one. I think Moore is.
I think technically he's probably the best wrestler. It's just all these guys have. He showed he was beatable this year.
No, he's definitely vulnerable, but I don't think I ever viewed him as invulnerable, so it didn't shock me as much. I think that at the Penn State match, it'll be very, very quick. There was a lot of energy in that building because they're at Penn State, so it was kind of a freak thing, and Machiavello got a really last-second takedown. So I'm going to pick Moore, and I think it'll be Moore Darmstadt. It'll be chalk to the finals, and Ohio State will win the national championship.
So you got Moore over Darmstadt, and Matt will finish with you at 197.
I like Darmstadt over Moore, and I think it makes it real interesting in the team race with this matchup with Moore not winning the national championship.
It very well could come down to this heavyweight bout, which I think this is going to be very easy. It's going to be Kyle Snyder and Adam Kuhn. They have split meetings this year. Kyle Snyder finally lost at heavyweight for the first time. That was the first time he lost since he was a 97-pounder his freshman year at Ohio State. I'm going to go with Snyder over Kuhn. Actually, no, I take this back. This will be the 4th time they wrestled because I know it is the 3rd time they wrestled. Sorry. Kuhn beat him in the dual meet at Michigan. Snyder beat him in an epic Big Ten final. I think we're in store for another epic match between the two. I'm going Snyder over Kuhn. The Olympic champion wins his 3rd title, goes out on top, and then he's going to go off and win another gold medal in 2020 at the Summer Games in Tokyo. Fellas, what do you think? I think this is actually going to end the night. This will be the final match of the night between Snyder and Kuhn. And this actually could, I think by Snyder winning, this will decide the team race too. Mike, what do you got?
First of all, I'm not sure if it's going to end the night. I don't think it's as interesting now that Snyder won again. I think if Kuhn beat Snyder in the final, maybe it would be the most interesting match. But I think 65.
I totally disagree with you.
I agree. I disagree with you as well.
I think 65, especially if it's I Marchenzo. If that's the.
But say Richie Lewis makes the final. Is that 65 going to be the final one again?
No, it won't be. So I think that could be it. I think Snyder's going to beat Kuhn. Everyone last week that I talked to, at least in the media,
was like Snyder's going to beat Kuhn.
Said no, Kuhn is going to beat Snyder. Oh, he's too big
for the second time. Wow.
And I totally don't buy that. I don't buy that
same.
now. There's ways against it. I think Snyder's been sleeping literally 17 hours a day for the last 2 weeks just to rest up for this tournament. He's fine.
He's fine. And, Matt, I'm assuming you have Snyder over Kuhn in the finals.
I do as well. I mean, it's hard to pick against the Olympic gold medalist. Even though he's lost
and world
this guy
champion
before.
Two-time world champion.
Two-time world champion, Olympic gold medalist on the biggest stage of senior year of his career. He's not losing to Kuhn.
No, I don't think so either. Well, that is going to do it for us. For Matt Howe, Mike Antosiewicz, I am Nick Kosko saying so long. We want to thank our broadcast administrator, Mike Pavlichko, who sat in studio for us to put us on the air from our hotel room. We are going to go, I don't know what we're going to do now. We're going to go eat, go eat, do some work, get all that stuff done, and we're going to get ready for tomorrow. Make sure to catch us. Of course, catch us tomorrow at 11:45 a.m. It's Italian. We're learning. We're learning from you. So 11:45 tomorrow, folks. Make sure you tune in as we're going to give you pre-tournament coverage, and of course we'll start session 1 at 12 noon tomorrow as myself, Mike, and Matt will be there with you live from the Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland, Ohio for the 2018 NCAA Wrestling Championships. Make sure to keep it locked for further programming here on 88.7 WRSU FM and online at WRSU.org. Have a good day, everybody.